Marcus Webb opened his garage at 6 in the morning, just like he did every single day. He unlocked the front door, turned on the lights, started the coffee machine, and pulled on his work coveralls. The name on the coveralls said, Webb's Auto and Precision. The name on the front of the building said the same thing. And the name in the hearts of nearly every driver in Dunmore County said it too, because Marcus Webb was the best mechanic anyone in that town had ever seen. He was 43 years old. He had calloused hands, an easy smile, and the kind of patience that only comes from years of hard, honest work. His father had been a mechanic. His grandfather had worked the land with his bare hands and asked nothing from anyone. Marcus carried both of them in his blood every time he walked into that garage. The shop was not fancy. There were 3 bays for cars, a long tool wall with everything organized and clean, a small waiting area with plastic chairs and old magazines, and a coffee machine that Marcus kept running all day long. But the equipment was top quality, the work was always done right, and the appointments were booked 6 weeks in advance. Marcus had 3 employees: Darius, who was young and brilliant; Rosa, who could hear an engine problem the way a musician hears a wrong note; and Kenny, who had worked for Marcus's father for 20 years before joining Marcus when he opened his own place. Together, they were a quiet, strong, well-oiled team. On a Tuesday morning in late summer, that ordinary, peaceful world was about to be shaken up. Marcus was lying under a Land Rover, checking the brake lines, when he heard it, the loud crunch of gravel under fast-moving tires. Whoever had just pulled into his parking lot was in a hurry, or wanted people to think they were. He slid out from under the car and stood up slowly. The vehicle that had arrived was a pearl-white Mercedes-Benz S-Class. Brand new. Not a single scratch. It gleamed in the morning sun like it had never touched a dirty road in its life. The woman who stepped out of it looked much the same way, perfectly dressed in a charcoal blazer and silk blouse, her heels clicking sharply on the concrete as she walked. She was in her mid-40s, with sharp eyes and the steady expression of someone who was used to giving instructions, not receiving them. She did not stop at the front desk. She did not wait to be greeted. She walked straight into the open bay, looked around the shop for a moment, and then her eyes landed on Marcus, standing there in his coveralls, a wrench in one hand, a shop rag in the other. "Is there a manager I can speak with?" she asked. Marcus looked at her calmly. "You're speaking to the owner," he said. Something moved behind her eyes. It was quick, the kind of thought a person has when the world does not match the picture they built in their head. She adjusted, the way people who are very practiced at controlling situations always do. "My car needs a diagnostic," she said. She placed her keys on the workbench between them like she was dropping a business card on a table. "I was told this was the best independent shop in the area. I assume you can handle a modern European vehicle." That word, assume, carried a lot of weight the way she said it. Marcus heard all of it. He picked up the keys without blinking. "We can handle it," he said simply. Her name, Marcus learned a few minutes later when she filled out the customer form, was Catherine Harlow. CEO of Harlow Vance Capital, a private investment company that had been quietly buying up commercial land across the county for the past 2 years. She was powerful, she was connected, and she was clearly not the kind of woman who was accustomed to waiting for anything or anyone. Darius ran the full diagnostic while Catherine Harlow stood in the bay and watched. She did not sit down. She asked questions, some reasonable, some clearly designed to test whether Marcus actually knew what he was talking about. She asked if his diagnostic machine was the latest model. She asked if he had specific experience with the air suspension on the S-Class. She mentioned, more than once, what the dealership usually does, in the careful tone of someone drawing a comparison they want you to notice. Marcus answered every question without irritation and without showing off. He simply knew the answers, and he gave them. When Darius returned with the full report, Marcus read through it carefully and then explained everything to Catherine in plain, clear language. Her car had 3 problems. First, the rear driver's side air strut was failing, it would need to be replaced. Second, a coolant temperature sensor was giving wrong readings, which could cause the engine to work harder than it should. And third, the most serious issue, the transmission valve body was in the early stages of failure. This was the part that controls how the gears shift. If it was not fixed soon, the damage would spread to the entire transmission. Catherine listened without expression. Then she said, "The dealership serviced this car 2 months ago. They told me the transmission was in good condition. The dealership was mistaken, Marcus said. She studied him for a long moment. The valve body replacement, what does that cost at a dealership? Usually around $6,000, Marcus said. I can do it for $3,800. That includes parts, labor, and a 2-year warranty on the work. Another silence. The kind where the other person is not simply thinking, they are deciding something. Then Catherine Harlow said something that made the entire shop go quiet. Here is what I am going to do, she said. Her voice was composed and even. I am going to call the regional Mercedes-Benz dealership in Macon right now. I am going to read them your diagnostic report and ask their master technician to give me an independent opinion. If your findings are inaccurate, if you have identified problems that do not actually exist, I will not pay for this diagnostic. And I will write a review of this shop that reflects exactly what happened here. The air in the garage changed. Rosa had stopped what she was doing across the bay. Kenny looked up from the floor. Darius stood completely still. Everyone was watching Marcus. Marcus set the diagnostic report down on the workbench. He looked at Catherine Harlow for a long, quiet moment. And then he said 2 words. Call them. Catherine blinked. She had expected hesitation. She had expected him to soften, to backpedal, to offer some kind of negotiation. She had not expected that. She took out her phone, found the number, and dialed. Then, and this was the part that surprised her, Marcus said, please put it on speaker. She looked at him for a half-second. Then she pressed speaker and set the phone on the workbench between them. The technician who answered at the Macon dealership was a man named Greg Patel. He had been working on Mercedes-Benz vehicles for over 20 years. He held certifications that most mechanics only read about. He was, by any measure, exactly the kind of expert Catherine had intended to use as a weapon against Marcus. Catherine read him the full diagnostic report, line by line. Greg Patel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked 2 short questions, about the mileage on the vehicle and the date of the last factory service. Then there was a brief pause. That diagnosis is accurate, he said. The words landed in the garage like stones dropped into still water. The valve body issue is a known pattern in high-mileage 2019 S-Class models, he continued. It tends to develop quietly, which is why it is easy to miss in a standard service check. Whoever ran this diagnostic caught it at exactly the right time. If you had driven another 8 to 10,000 miles without addressing it, you would have been looking at a full transmission failure. That repair would have cost you well over $14,000. Silence. And the other 2 items? Catherine asked. Her voice was still steady, but something underneath it had shifted. Both are consistent with the age and mileage of the vehicle, Patel said. This is a thorough and correct report. Whoever did this work knows what they are doing. Catherine thanked him and ended the call. She placed the phone face down on the workbench. She did not speak for several seconds. When she finally looked up at Marcus, the sharp, evaluating expression she had worn since the moment she arrived had changed. It had not disappeared, she was still very much a woman who thought carefully before she spoke. But something genuine had replaced the edge. How long have you been doing this? She asked. 21 years, Marcus said. 17 in this building. She nodded slowly. You did not seem nervous when I said I was going to make that call. I knew what the report said, he told her. There was nothing to be nervous about. Another pause. Then, quietly enough that it felt private, even in an open garage, she said, I owe you an apology. For the way I came in here. Marcus looked at her steadily. In his life, he had been owed many apologies. Some people delivered them, and some people never got around to it. This one had arrived, and he was not going to make it harder for her than it needed to be. I appreciate that, he said. Your car will be ready by end of day Thursday. He could have ended it there. He had won. The point had been made clearly and cleanly, in front of witnesses and over speakerphone. Most people, in his position, would have simply moved on. But Marcus Webb was not most people. That Tuesday night, after the shop was closed and the lights were off, Marcus sat at the small desk in his back office and opened his laptop. He had spent the last few hours thinking, not about what had just happened, but about what might happen next. He knew from public records and local business news that Harlow Vance Capital had recently purchased several commercial properties across the county. One of them was a large, empty warehouse on Remington Road, about 2 miles from his shop. It had been closed for 3 years. It was a good-sized building in a good location, and the question of what it would become had been a topic of conversation at the local Chamber of Commerce meetings Marcus attended every month. He had been thinking about opening a second location for 2 years. He had the finances to do it. He had the staff who were ready to grow. He had a reputation that would fill a second shop with customers before the paint was dry. What he had not had, until today, was a connection to the right person at the right time. He stayed up until midnight writing a 2-page business proposal. It was not a complicated document. It was honest and clear, the same way Marcus was in everything he did. It included 3 years of financial records from Webb's Auto, showing steady growth and strong profit. It included his certifications, his employee records, and a letter from the Dunmore County Chamber of Commerce calling him one of the most trusted business owners in the region. And it outlined a simple idea: he would open a second Webb's Auto location as the anchor tenant in the redeveloped Remington Road warehouse, bringing consistent traffic, reliable income, and a respected name to whatever Catherine was planning to build on that property. On Thursday afternoon, when Catherine Harlow arrived to collect her car, Marcus handed her the folder along with her receipt. She looked at the folder. "What is this?" "A proposal," he said. "You are developing the space on Remington Road. I have been planning to expand for 2 years. I would rather do it with someone who understands this county." She opened the folder and began reading. Not glancing, actually reading, the way she had not read the diagnostic report before making her phone call. She finished the first page, moved to the second, and then looked up. "You wrote this on Tuesday night?" she asked. "Tuesday night," he confirmed. She was quiet for a long moment. The shop was busy around them. Darius was working on a sedan 2 bays over, Rosa was on the phone with a parts supplier, Kenny was sweeping near the back, but in that small space between Marcus and Catherine, everything felt still. Then Catherine Harlow smiled. Not the polished, controlled smile she used in meetings and negotiations. A real one. The kind that reaches the eyes and happens before the brain gives permission. "Have your people call my people," she said. Then she paused and added, "Actually, I want to meet with you directly. No assistance between us." Marcus nodded once. "I can do that," he said. She paid her bill, $200 under the original estimate, because Darius had found a better source for the valve body part without reducing the quality, and she walked back out to her white Mercedes. This time, she did not drive fast out of the parking lot. She pulled out slowly and carefully, like someone who had just been reminded that other people built things worth paying attention to. The second Webb's Auto and Precision opened 14 months later on a warm Saturday morning in early October. The building on Remington Road had been gutted, rebuilt, and painted. New equipment filled the bays. A second coffee machine sat near a second tool wall. And above the front doors, in the same clean lettering as the original shop, hung the sign that Marcus had designed himself, the same sign, the same colors, the same logo his daughter had sketched on a piece of notebook paper when she was 9 years old. Catherine Harlow was there for the ribbon cutting. She stood with Marcus's accountant, the county's small business liaison, and the mayor, watching as a small but warm crowd of longtime customers, neighbors, and local journalists gathered on the sidewalk. She had told the full story: the phone call, the diagnosis, the apology, the proposal written in the dark on a Tuesday night, to several of her colleagues and partners during the months they had worked together. She told it not to embarrass herself, but because she believed the lesson inside it was worth more than her pride. Marcus cut the ribbon with a pair of scissors his mother had pressed into his hand the day he graduated from his automotive training program, 30 years earlier. "You are going to open your own shop someday," she had told him. "Keep these." He had kept them. He always had. Darius stood near the front with a wide grin. Rosa had brought her 2 children, who were more interested in the refreshment table than the ceremony, which made Marcus smile. Kenny wore his good jacket, the one he saved for important days. Marcus looked up at the new sign, then across the street, then back at the people around him. He thought about a Tuesday morning and a pair of car keys dropped onto a workbench like a test. He thought about 2 words spoken without fear. He thought about a folder handed across a counter at the end of a long day, and the quiet confidence required to believe it was worth handing. Some people wait for the world to recognize them. Marcus Webb had spent his whole life simply doing excellent work and trusting that the truth, when it needed to be heard, would find its way out. Standing in front of his second shop on that October morning, he knew, with the same calm certainty he had always carried, that it always does.